Trustee Walt Lashevsky.
Here.
Trustee Neil Gaynor.
Here.
Trustee Brad Hauk.
Here.
Trustee Keith.
Sorry.
Ken Becker. It's your on, Keith. Trustee Keith Lincoln.
I was looking at a map for the water line. My
That's your story. You stick with it. Trustee David Smith.
Here.
Trustee alternate Diane Nielsen.
Here.
Here. Trustee Bob Lux is here. Trustee Paul Martin.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
He called you.
You were in the lost in the. Oh, no.
Yeah, you were making a right-hand turn there.
But I had you checked in anyway, Ken. Okay, we'll begin with invocation and pledges of allegiance. Excuse me. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, our community, and our nation. Help us to work diligently, always for the common good and in the best interest of those we have been elected to represent. Guide us to be insightful and prudent in our intentions, visions, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance, to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue and discussion with understanding, wisdom, and humility. Amen.
Amen.
If you wish, prior to reciting the pledges of allegiance, please take an additional moment of silent prayer in the manner of your preference. Thank you. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pledge to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Kelly, do we have any comments from the public this evening? We do not. Okay. Agenda item number 4, receive an update from Region H by Arthur Bradehoff. Good evening, Arthur. Nice to see you.
Mr. President, trustees, SJRA members, and our public. Nothing to report as we did not have a meeting yet. Our next meeting is May the 6th, and we'll be back at the May trustee board meeting to update the activities that took place at Region H meeting in May. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Arthur on any of the past reports that he's given? Thank you, sir. Have a pleasant evening. Is Imelda Diaz here?
No, Melda won't be here.
Do you have anything to update from the San Jacinto Region 6 flood planning group?
Yes, the next meeting is on May 12th. Therefore, tonight there's no update.
Very good. Okay, that brings us to agenda items 6, 7, and 8, the consent agenda. Pages 1 through 17 in our meeting packet.
A comment on item 6. Page 4. Item 14. About mid paragraph there, it says 217 MGD. That should read gallons per day. So it's 217 GPD per SFDUE.
Yes, sir. We haven't noted. Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
That would be a humongous.
I didn't want people to get the wrong idea.
Big family, big family.
Very good. Anyone else have any stunning revelations as we were If not, I'd entertain a motion to
I'll
accept.
move to accept as presented.
Second, please.
Second.
Second, trustee Howe. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this matter? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Thank you. That brings us to the regular SJRA division report. Good evening, Mr. Meeks.
Hey,
Nice to see you.
see y'all as well. Speaking for this month, we do the irregular report. A few items that are not on the agenda nor in the packet to go over here in a minute, talking about various things that Ed will get to. But on your report, it begins on page 18. As you can see, we did have a water main break, mid-March roughly, March 17th. John Cooper and Flint Ridge, drilling contractor drilled through our line, backed up, drilled somewhere else, went through. So contractor went out there and fixed it, and we are seeking reimbursement from the contractor to hit the water line, as we typically do. Below that, you'll see the typical monthly graph that we show for the water and ground or surface water groundwater blend ratio usage. You will see that in March, the numbers did go inverted according to plan. One thing to keep in mind with that, though, is that the dotted dashed line is what the original budget was based off of. When GRP did the budget amendment in September to go from 16 MGD to 20 MGD, we did not go and change basically the cash flow for the Woodlands division. So the actual is going to be based off of what we're actually doing with the production, changing from peaking in the summer to peaking throughout the year. But the dash line, excuse me, is going to be based off the old budget. Going into next year's budget, we're going to fix it. And actually, we know what we're going in as, we'll keep it consistent. So, but with that being said, if you look on page 19 towards the top, we are at a blend of 53% groundwater, 47% surface water. We are on track to reach the 50-50 at the end of the year. Besides that, on the general report, are there any questions from anybody?
On the same page, page 19.
Yes, sir.
We're still seeing this water loss question it's been a bit of a struggle with that, trying to get that straightened out. The budget is what? 4.5% or 5%?
The budget is 4%.
4%.
Currently.
Yeah.
We are looking at that for FY27. We have raised it to 5%, trying to figure out if we need to raise it higher. Estimated cost at this point for every 1% is about $150,000, just to FY, throw it out there. On that, change the subjects, but dealing with water loss. When you look at this 12-month water loss table on the bottom right or the graph, we're looking to change that to a pie graph. That way you can actually see, you can't see some of the greens for a few months, but there are some numbers there that are small. So we're going to switch it to a pie graph so you can actually see those numbers as well.
You still see the multiple months?
You can.
Okay.
Right?
Yes, but there's always water loss, it's just so small that you can't see it on that graph.
But if we have a 12-month water loss, could you do a pie graph for 12 months?
I mean, we'll have a pie graph for every month then?
We're going to take a look at it.
Yeah. We just thought it was-
She's my
That's what
graph.
you need. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think the greater resolution by month is great, but being able to see the trend by month is important. Don't want to lose that.
We just scale it down, instead of 16%, we go to 10, and then if you go above 10, we just notate what the actual percentage was to grow. But so we'll take a look at that. But I know the River Authority has calibrated their well flow meters in January and February, and they're within 1 or 2%. And so we do have our water loss accounted for the best that we know of.
How many points do you meter and then we take over? So you have one master meter or there at each water plant? Do you have
We have 2 meters at each water plant. And so we
that's
have.
metering the incoming?
Correct.
So you got how many total?
It's 9 actually, because we have 1 per GST and we have 9 GSTs. Verify, because we talked about that earlier.
No, there's,
I got that.
got flow meters on each well. Some of the sites have main flow meters on the collection line where all the wells are coming into the GSTs, but it's just the one. And then you also have flow meters leaving the water plant from the booster pumps going out both sides of the plant.
So there's 10 of them.
Yes, there's 10 of those.
So there's 10
So
of them.
that's what you use to bill the total of those 10.
No, what we bill is actually your meters. So we do production. We say, these are all the wells, this is surface water, this is everything produced and delivered. And then our sales is whatever y'all read on the meters.
Oh, but you got some surface water and some well water.
Correct.
So are you totaling all of the surface water separate from the well water?
We do. Yeah, because we have a surface water meter and we build, that's what GRP bills us on. And
So
then-
you only have one of those, or you've got,
No, we have five,
Five,
one in each
okay.
of the water plants.
I'm just wondering if you could tie down to one area that's causing a problem some way. I don't know, because it's all commingled and once it's in the system anyway, I guess.
That's the issue. Once it leaves the system, I mean, you can separate by pressure plane to a certain degree, but it's based off y'all's meters versus, ours.
Yeah.
So I don't know if y'all have anything else to add to that.
No, we've done more analysis, both with our billing software. We were thinking maybe it was there. We've exhausted that effort to identify that it's not that, other than where you see the timing, which I reported last month. So where you see a corresponding one, next to a larger number, those all balance out except for September. And so September seems to be the month that we even went to all of the actual individual meter reads from Neptune, which it comes in from our 34,000 meters from Neptune. And then that information gets sent to the billing company software. That's where the bills get pushed out. And so the information that came in from the meters is consistent with what was ended up billing. Because what we were wondering is, if there was a certain amount of water that came in for the meters, did it just not get billed, or was there a discrepancy there? And we've not found any discrepancies there either. So other than the timing issue that kind of balances those other months, with the exception of September. The difference is not as big as this graph makes it look, just because it goes all the way to 15, but it is a lot lower than that. But there's still an amount of water that we can't. I will say in these numbers, our losses are not in here in these numbers, but that wouldn't affect the total. That would affect what color is it? The green. That would affect the difference between the accounted for and unaccounted for losses. So the red lines would go down and the green line would go up. But that's not what accounts for the blue line, which is really what we're looking at. So.
I vaguely remember that when General Manager Stenson speaking one time, he said that with the new meters, we were, basically more accurately telling the customer, what the charge was. Do you think this is kind of like a little bit of that? We had a period of, inaccuracy. Now we have a period of accuracy, higher accuracy. Do you think there could be some link to this issue here, that since we're now getting a year's worth of data compared to, to 2 years, that it all wash out after a while?
There may be some averaging there. I know where we came from in 2018 or 19 was we were around 12. And then we dropped all, when we did the residential meters, we went to 4 or in the 4s. And now it seems over the life, you'll notice, this didn't just, it started to creep 4, 4.5, close to 5. And it's kind of, I don't know. The industry average is about 8 to 10. So we're still much better than that. We're still more accurate than that. Now, one of the other things that has been occurring over this time period is we started, if you recall, switching out all the large diameter commercial meters. Now that should make it more accurate, you would think. So those aren't completed, but they're mostly completed. And so you would think that it would equalize or balance at some point. So I'm not sure at this point if we're quite to the balancing act yet on all of them.
I remember that discussion from three years ago. Yes.
Legal taps, maybe. Conspiracy theory.
That's kind of where I was going.
I have seen in this world, water line breaks that never go to the surface. That is possible, and they happen to be close to a storm sewer line. And it goes right down the drain. You never see it, never hear it. You'd have to walk by the drain and you can hear water running in the summer and realize it hadn't rained lately. Why is there water running down there? I mean, underground, not on the curb line. I've seen where a water line might break under a lake, potentially. And we found that in Wedgewood, in Mud One a couple of years ago, where we were fixing a storm line and there was a water line going underneath it that had a leak in it. So we fixed it.
That would be a constant offset though.
Correct. It wouldn't be, that's right. That's a good point. You'd see that stay right now. That could lead to why it's from 5 to 7 and that has stayed. If we were, the average is still 6.5 over the last 15 months. That would be the next, if it got to a critical level, meaning, at 10 or greater, or even 8 or greater, there are other things that you can do with different technologies as far as having someone come in and do sonar and different things to find leaks. I have had some success with that in smaller systems. This is a massive system to find the needle, if truly there is one. So that would be our next step. We're going to have a meeting with SDRA here in the next week or so to just kind of bring back all of the data that we've now found and brainstorm what our next steps might be. I mean, we're still in a fantastic spot. It's just not where we've been the last 2 years. So good at that because we've been in the 4s, but we're still in a really good spot industry wide.
Could you bring that long-term data to our next meeting? What you guys decide and look at next week?
Sure.
So we can, because you're right, this 12-month, it looks like a lot of data, but in the big picture, it doesn't show the ups and downs with noting when the meters were changed down and that kind of stuff. So it'd almost be nice.
Just as a comment, as a ditch walker for 20-some years, if you wait a couple of weeks and you got water running down off-road ditches, there's a problem. And which I've found probably half a dozen over the years that's the last resort. But if you see water running in a off-road ditch and it hadn't rained for 2 weeks, then that water's probably coming out of the system somewhere.
Well, to that point, Kent and Randy and I were walking a ditch about 2 months ago, and it hadn't rained in a while, and there was water running down the slope paving or down the ditch, and sure enough, SDRA was draining one of the tanks that was half a mile away, or a little mile, and there it was. I mean, Randy happened to know that was already occurring, and then we called and confirmed, and sure enough, that's where it's coming from. But to your point, it could be a leak, and it is somewhere in the system as well. We actually, when Kim and Randy and I were doing the ditch evaluations, we were in the ditch. There was an outfall. It hadn't rained in a while. It was in the summer, and there's not a significant amount of water, but there was more water than you would have thought coming out of one of the outfalls. So we went up to the street, went down the street, up into the neighborhood, and sure enough, we were working on a water line break that was in that area at that point. So that's absolutely can lead you to certain things.
And all adds up.
It all adds up.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, give you an example. I was out 2 months or less than a month ago, water running down the ditch that starts there at the 4th hole and the golf course runs out to 9X3. And there was water coming down that ditch like crazy. So I started walking back, and it turned out that the overflow corrugated pipe for that golf course lake on number 4 had broken. And literally there was probably several hundred gallons a day coming out of there at least. So I ran down to the golf course maintenance people, and it wasn't our problem, but that lake would have gotten 2 or 3 feet low real quick. But in other words, if you just see that water running in there and it's dry, usually it's our problem somewhere.
All right, yes, sir.
If you can go to page 26. Under the station number 21, Fourth Main renewal,
Yes.
at least the copy I have. it looks like the text has been lifted from lift station 24 improvements and copied down there.
But it has, so.
However, on page 47, the information is, the detailed information is correct. So,
Okay, now if we can get that fixed by the month next week.
Sounded good to see if you were reading the report.
I like that.
The rest of us didn't want to make you look bad. You just kneel.
Oh, Miss Malia.
Oh, I thought it was Chris and Ed. Sorry.
No.
Chris, can we go back to page on 25? The disinfection byproduct study looks like that's wrapping up. Any insights? Or we gonna get a summary next month?
Yeah, as soon as we get it, we can give a summary. Aaron's here. Aaron, do you remember roughly the cost of mitigation for THMs per tank? It was 500 to $1 million or so, high level.
Well, it depends on the method that you go with, but probably looking close to under $1 million.
So what was the break point? How high can you go before you need to spend money?
60%.
60%.
60%.
Yeah, it was like 63 or 62, yeah.
And $1 million gets you
Up to
100%, 80%?
75, 80%, do you recall?
It was in
It
the.
depends on the plan, but roughly 80%.
Okay, but you'll bring that back to us
Yeah, we'll
next
get
month.
the report, yeah. All right, if there's no other questions on the report, we did, getting on page 29, we did provide, actually 28. This is our 6-month project update. Not going to go page by page by page of this. This is for y'all to read. If you have questions, let us know. If you have read all the questions, we do have Aaron here to answer the questions. But essentially, this is the same one that you received 6 months ago, with just updated projects, schedule, cost, all that other good stuff. So
William Lift Station 21.
with it, yeah. All right, so there is a couple other things. I'm going to turn over to Ed. He's going to walk through those unless there's any
Talk
questions
the GOP report?
about the GRP report.
All right.
Or Ed can talk about the GRP report.
It's in your packet.
Yes, sir. What question do you have?
On page 51 or 4, depending on what you look at. The service water receiving facility optimization study.
Yes.
Are we gonna get an update on that?
Yep.
With it, I mean, did we find out anything interesting or?
No, nothing really. I mean, we went through and the whole point of this was to say, okay, what's the biggest size we could make the valves and the piping and how much water could they receive? And so we have that information at this point in time. But if anybody wants additional water, let's say Woodlands wanted water plant 4 to have 10 million gallons a day. In previous days, the River Authority would pay for that. We'd upsize everything. That's when we started this study. In today's world, if water plant 4 needs to be increased at y'all's request, then y'all have to pay.
Right.
And so we finished the study and said, okay, in theory, you could go up here and everything, deliver how much water we need to and everything else. But then we stopped it because if whoever needs it, they need to do it their own study to tell us.
Okay, so can you bring us back what you think each customer, the maximum each customer could take?
Yeah, we got that page. We can get that. Yeah, actually, we'll send it to Eric and you send it.
I assume it's more than 20.
20 million gallons a day.
More than 30?
I'd say it's more than 30 because I know water plant 2 can take.
It's quite a bit, yeah.
It's
Okay,
up there.
just bring the data, yeah.
Yeah, because we're just looking to see, it's like, you want to be able to move water around, right? So if I can't send the water here, I need to make sure I can send more there. So, yeah, we can send it out. Any other questions?
You're saying, in one of the previous meetings you mentioned, we could be up to 38 gallons per day.
Right.
We do have got a cost, what needs to be modified to do that.
Yeah, that cost will be presented to the review committee next month in May. We went through it today. Rough numbers is just under 20 million. Because membranes are about 14 million of that. GAC is about 4 million.
Well,
And
then
then-
the second 4 million is what?
GAC, GAC, granulated activated carbon.
Yeah.
And then the last is the pretreatment, which I want to say is about 1.5 million. Now, that is not expanding the facility. That is merely saying there's additional capacity that could be garnished if we change pumps, valves, piping, added a little bit more GAC or something like that. The problem is we can get the plant to 38. I just cannot get the water out. at 38.
When you say that out, you mean
The pumps.
customer forward at the other end.
No. The pumps actually to leave the facility to get them out. Because TCQ has a firm capacity, right? So I may have pumps for like 50 million gallons a day, but I have to take one of them out of service. So then I'm down to, let's just say 30 MTD. So in order to push the water out, I need to get more pumps. Getting more pumps is an expansion of the facility.
And that, in the area we have the pumps, is there a stand that's available?
There actually is. So we have rough numbers. We have 4 large pumps, 2 small pumps, 1 empty base. So one of the thoughts is to take the 2 small pumps, enlarge them to bigger pumps, and or fill out the empty base with a new pump. Now, if the 2 small pumps were needing to be replaced, aged out, condition, whatever it may be, then it's no brainer. You just replace the H one with a bigger one, you're good, but they're still good. They're only 10 years old. So yeah, we got the bottlenecks just under 20 million. There is a plan to get all that installed potentially over the next 4 to 5 years based off of a membrane study, but we will be having a April GRP review committee, right? We had our hiatus and now we're off of it. So we'll be back for that one and we're going to go through some of that in April. Project plan in May. One last thing before I do hand it over to Ed, just because I keep forgetting because it's new. Our financials for Woodlands and GRP are going to be delayed 1 month. So now you're used to when you got this report for March, you're seeing March financials. When you see that, you're not going to have financials this month, but next month when you get the report in May, you're going to see the March financials. But the good news is we're going to be able to have them for the trustees meeting. So just wanted to throw it out there. So if you don't see financials out this month, that's why.
Part of that has to do with our ability to close out accounts at the end of the month. It still takes a certain amount of time. You know, today's only the 8th. That information is normally available by the 10th. Yeah. So that's why the delay. I've got 2 things to visit with y'all about. If you'll take one and pass it, please. So neither one of the items I'm going to visit with you about tonight. Well, back up. What we're handing out now does not require any action. So it's just an information and we'll cover more of that in the MUD meetings. Yeah, from the passes. So is there enough?
All right.
Are there enough copies?
Yes, plenty.
All right. Last month's meeting, not only trustees, but MUD meetings, there were several questions, comments, requests for a schedule of tier 1 projects and how that related to the supplemental agreement, approving the supplemental agreement, when funding might be necessary for the projects. And so y'all asked for a schedule. So this is a quick understanding of the schedule. We were originally trying to get a supplemental agreement considered and approved by April. We had also heard comments that some would like to wait till after the election, fine by us. So we moved this to June, late June or July, partly so that there was an opportunity for us and WWA to help educate the new directors on the projects and what's in play, what's not. And so that's why it got shifted to June or July. If it's July, then it goes to our board for approval in July. The board, SRA board offers or approves the official statement so that bids can be received for the bonds. You'll see under August 26, SRA approval of underwriting selection, approved order to issue bonds and issue final offering documents. Some of you all may have seen an official statement in the past. Some of you have not because bonds have not been issued since you've been on board. But it's a document that FA and the Bond Council and the engineers put together that kind of describes the project. It identifies the projects that are to be considered for the bonds, nothing else. And then it goes through some pro formas and some other information about the entity that's issuing the bonds. It basically is a document that the bond bidders are looking at to see if that entity is sustainable, reliable, and can pay back the bonds. So it's an important document, and that's what the bidders are, bond bidders are relying heavily on. Bond sale, September, bond closing funding becomes available October 26th. And that also includes having to go to the AG and get an opinion on the ability to issue those bonds. With that being the case, we're not moving forward on any engineering, construction, easement acquisition until bonds are in place or funds are in place. Because we have to, when we advertise a project for bid, we have to have funds on hand to be able to cover it. And in the past, we might blend it over a couple of years. Aubrey's, our general manager's preference is to have all the funds in place prior to advertisement of the project. There might be a little bit of play in when we do easement acquisition or when we would start easement acquisition, if we can move some R&R funds around and then just reimburse the R&R funds with bond amounts so that we can advance the easements by a couple of months. And so you see the easement acquisition down there, it takes roughly 6 to 9 months, subject to whether we have to do eminent domain or not. Engineering is nearing, we still have to complete engineering, but that's supposed to be done by the end of this year. And then new rates would start with the first of the year. And that's a little bit out of cycle, but we're already incurring, because we're incurring interest costs. We don't have any, I'm trying to remember the term. We're not advancing in the bond sale a year or two worth of capitalized interest. And so we've got to start paying the bond documents. The official statement will say when the first payment starts. Normally we're paying interest in April and interest in principal in October. So if they sell before the end of the year, then we might have an interest payment in April of 2027. And that's going to be several $1 million. And the money's going to have to come from somewhere. Preliminary engineering for Woodlands Parkway wouldn't start until after the bonds or funds are available. And then we would do a request for qualifications for engineering firms. And then it would take roughly a year to do engineering, preliminary engineering. And then by July of next year, we should have town center ready to go to construction. So that's why you see that. And then construction, the board would approve the contracts and all the documents associated with the construction contract for town center by October. And then construction would be underway, and it's roughly an 18-month project. And then final engineering for Woodlands Parkway, based on what was identified in the Tier 1 projects in HCR's report, conceivably would final design would go from February 28 to January 29. And then we'd advertise, assuming we don't need easements, we would advertise shortly thereafter. So wanted to give you this. We'll go over it again in the MUD meetings, just so that you have some idea of the timing of things. Any quick questions before we get too far off of this?
You gave us a list of easements and how much you thought they would cost and all that. You expected any eminent domain issues?
Probably 75% of those are Howard Hughes easements, so we think we're going to be fine. We don't know on the private easements until we start having conversations. There are two types of condemnation. There's a friendly one where the company is doing it so that they're covered with shareholders and whatnot and tax purposes. And then there's the unfriendly. But by the time you file the documents with the court, you have those easements within 120 days, whether you've settled on a price or not. And so we can go to work and just continue fighting, or continuing having conversations about the value of that easement. Yes. Mark, Ken.
You've got the rate increase the first of the year.
Yes, sir.
Can you give us, because our budget year is going to start in October for all the months, can you give us an estimated based on interest rates and everything for that time period?
As we get closer, yes, but today, no.
No, I
Yeah,
understand
okay,
that.
good.
But you're planning on, no, I understand that, but so you'll have a estimate for your rate increases so we can include it in our budget.
Yeah, the initial look that we reported last month, just for the preliminary numbers, which they're being redone right now, was about 47 cents, about $4.70 average for the average customer per month on the water.
Right, but they're gonna,
However, well, that was based on their numbers, but those numbers are being redone, and I forecast that we'll likely dig a little deeper into the numbers in the May meetings. Just all the financials are kind of worked out. We'll also look at any on the mud side as far as any ramp up to that number on the retail side. That's likely in the May meetings.
And, we go back to the last 2 years. At one point, this time, 2 years ago, we were talking about a $500 million expenditure. We had done, we were talking about tax rollback elections and all that in April, May.
We weren't, you all were.
Well, yeah. And we had a set of costs for that. We had a set of costs for the AC pipeline, we had a set of costs. That chart, wastewater treatment one. When I look at those numbers and I just take, and again, I don't remember, nor do I have the detail. Let's just take the AC pipeline. We had 45 to 50 miles and we had 180 to 225 million. And you start looking at that on a cost per mile and you get a number. And I haven't went back and did all these calculations yet, but with the numbers you shared with us last month, it seems like there's been a significant escalation in the last 2 years by cost per mile. And I'm not talking about I'm really looking at the, apples to apples, meaning we have some segments that are actually AC pipe we're replacing. When we look at those, there seems like there's significant cost. I'm just, I don't recall a lot of detail from 2 years ago, but can we understand the depth of these costs, meaning
That's
how
been,
much detail, how much backup do you have?
that's been a question that has been asked by a couple of directors, and we will have, I'm hoping to have some answers by next week's to give you some comparison between HDR's numbers and what we had to do. Well, and back up a minute. You remember the spreadsheet that was handed out?
Yes, I have.
Okay. This is based on our looking forward and the actual timing of when these projects might go forward. And HDR's numbers did not include inflation going forward. And it also didn't include certain ancillary tasks. And so we've added those in, and that has helped cause those numbers to increase. But we'll have some more specifics next time.
I'm just going back, then you take a step a year before that with the 2024 numbers. And back then, we would spend a lot of time dealing with the AC pipeline that, let's say 180 to 235 million for 45 miles. When you break that up and look at a mile, it seems, HCR kind of used the same set of numbers. I'm guessing, I went back and studied it.
They priced their numbers on an estimate that we've sourced for the town center water line project. And then they brought that up to date for the report to 2025. And some of these projects don't go off for another 5 years.
Yeah, I understand.
And so we've had to make some adjustments.
I'm kind of looking for a reconciliation, how did we get?
You're not the only one who's asked.
Right, how did we get double the cost? It is really the simple way. How did we?
I don't think it's double, but I know it's greater than what HDR's number
Yeah,
was.
it is, yeah.
Went from 120 to 150, so it's not that one.
Well,
based on the spreadsheet that was presented last. So let's be clear on the.
Well,
on the detail.
Right now, we have a lot of things going on. I will go back into my library and take a look at that. But I didn't see it when I first started looking, using HDR. I didn't go back to the 2024 numbers. But I did.
Well,
like HDR.
Construction costs have changed in the last
I
2
know that,
years,
I know that.
and they're going to continue to change until that project goes to bid.
Like I said, I'd like to see, are these estimates, are they based on quotes? Are they, when do you get a firmer, what's the status of that?
That's the other thing that I'm going to try to bring to you next week is what goes, from concept to finish, all the steps that we go through, when we get cost estimates updated, what's the conceptual estimate and what contingency is in that conceptual estimate versus when you have a final set of drawings and a final cost estimate, and your contingency is now 10% instead of 40%, which you started at with concept. And then, where's I headed? There's a progression of, as you start from concept, going through preliminary feasibility, preliminary engineering, final design. And then that's when that final estimate is prepared by the engineer. He puts his seal on it and signs it. And then that's the basis for us telling people what we think the project is going to cost. And then once we get the bids in and reconcile that against the engineer's cost estimate, I will tell you, the engineer never wants to be the low bidder. There have been times when they are, and it's embarrassing because then the client thinks the engineer is not paying attention to the market. But it could be that all the contractors overbid it because they have more work than they can do, and they're just seeing how hungry you are to move that project along. That's one way to look at it. We've also seen it where the contractor might be only 75% of the engineer's estimate because he's hungry. He needs the work. He needs to put his crew busy. So there's a lot of fluctuation once that contractor turns in his numbers. Now, the way the River Authority, we don't just take the low bid. We're taking competitive sealed proposals. So we look at the cost being 55% on the points, 55% of the point schedule. Then we look at the project manager that's going to be on the job. We look at his supervisors. We look at the firm's reputation. We look at the number of projects, similar projects they've done, and all that adds up to 100 points. And then, so we may end up taking second or third bidder, not the lowest, because we have experience with that contractor, they have experience with that type of project, and they have a track record of getting in and getting it done and not having a bunch of change orders from start to finish. So you may save money by taking the second or third next higher bidder versus the low bidder who is just trying to get in the door and then figuring he'll find change orders. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I'm going to try and put a kind of a flow chart, not a flow chart, but some sort of description of all the steps we go through and when we have documents that we can share and when we don't have documents we can share. Ready to go to the next subject? This topic needs a little, your concurrence because it talks about next steps. We're talking about the wastewater treatment plant, the project that Corolla was working on before they were told to stop because the SFDUE study was initiated. So I know this is hitting you without having a chance to read it, but just to refresh memories, there were 4 types of projects we were costing and evaluating. One was a repair in place, or just repair things in the sewer plant as needed. Another was repair in place where you're doing a whole new project, but while the plant is operational and the contractor and the operator are working in the same space. The other project was a new plant, new conventional plant on new land adjacent to the existing sewer plant. And the 4th project was a new membrane plant on new land. So those are the 4 projects that Corolla was evaluating. This was put on hold around May of 2025. The SFDU study started. Eric has provided his study results as of March of 2026. And there is a little bit of difference between the SFDUEs his team has identified versus the ones that Freeze Nichols identified in the strategic plan. And there's probably some explanation behind it. So, but to try and, before Corolla was using the specifics out of the Freeze Nichols report, the SFDUEs, the flow rate per connection. And if you remember, we use 217 gallons per connection on the sewer right now. And Freeze Nichols had recommended a lower rate of 200. It may be, well, what Corolla is saying, because of the change in the SFDUEs, there probably needs to be an evaluation of what that flow rate is today, because the SFDUE count is smaller or lower than what Freeze Nichols identified. So, and all of this impacts the ability to design the sewer plant to the correct size. And that's been one of your concerns, among other things. So just to refresh memories, our permit today is 7 million gallons a day, average daily flow. And
7.8.
7.8, excuse me. And it was recommended to do a 7 MGD plant with a 2-hour peak of 28 MGD. We've had, through some of the storms that have gone through that plant, as much as 32 million gallons go through the plant. And when you compare that 32 against current average daily flow of about 3.2, that's a 10 Q of inflow and infiltration into the system, and it's going through the plant. And the best we can do is chlorinate it and discharge it, because otherwise it would overflow the plant. So the things that we think need to be done to be able to come back to you and say, this is the right size for the plant, and these are the right parameters for the basins and so forth. And further refinement of the renewal and replacement alternatives, alternative evaluation and selection, cost estimates of each alternative, project delivery evaluation, and stakeholder coordination. We had, in Corolla's work order, there was a fair amount of meetings with you all to walk you through the process. So because of new SFDUE information, we're recommending the following tasks be added to the current scope of work. And I'm down at the bottom of page 1, where it says use the new SFDUE data to evaluate and right size the capacity of the plant, comply with all the TCQ rules, and this is chapter 217. And to refresh memories, the only time we can stick with chapter 317 is if we don't touch anything. So, and Chris and I talked earlier, the only thing that we weren't planning on touching was the belt press. So the aeration basins were going to get touched, the clarifiers were going to get touched, the blowers, all the piping, just about every process you can imagine in that sewer plant, except the belt press. So that forces us under the 217 rules.
So can we comment on that? Because I mean, that's not what we've heard from other.
Yeah, that's not what we heard at all.
Okay.
I can't help that. We can comment on it, but I can't help what other people are telling you. This is a professional engineer. This is what they do every day, day in and day out. And they're not going to violate TCQ rules and jeopardize their professional secret.
But we're not asking anybody to violate this, sir. All I'm saying is that there's, at the water board meeting last year, we talked with the author of these, of 217, and he said, you guys are misinterpreting that rule.
And who did you talk to?
No, I got his number.
I got his card.
Yeah.
I can get it out.
Okay.
I have it somewhere.
So it seems like we've got,
If you share the information, we'll have our consultant talk to them.
because it's not a matter of touch. I mean, my interpretation of what he said was, if you're doing maintenance on an item, for example, patching concrete, that's okay. Okay, and that's touching it.
Well, In a sense it is, but it's not rebuilding it. And what we're
Well,
talking,
yeah, so you didn't say rebuild, you said touch. So let's be specific, you either touch or you replace or you rebuild or you refurbish.
if you're
and-
thinking the aeration basins are only going to get touched with a patch, they're not. They're going to get replaced. They're too far gone. You've seen them. You've walked around
You're
them.
talking about A and B?
I'm talking all four of the aeration basins.
I didn't think that's what your structural analysis said. But anyway, let's not consume this meeting for that. But I think having a clear understanding of 217 and being careful on
But
with our
that's a design
words.
feature. That's design. What we're talking about right now is getting us past conceptual and just getting into design. And then they can address all of those issues during design.
Certainly it impacts your economic evaluation, though, if you think you can repair something versus you're quote
That's
touching.
up to the professional engineer. That's not up to me. That's not up to y'all.
Okay.
That's up to the professional engineer who's going to sign and seal that set of drawings.
Okay.
I'd just like to say, you know,
And I'm not trying to be argumentative.
Yeah, I
It just, we're getting too far into the weeds at this stage of the game because it's still conceptual. But we're going to price it based on worst case scenario. And if it comes in less, we save money.
Yeah, what you didn't mention, you mentioned that the average daily flow is 7.8 currently. The current permit on 2-hour peak is 18. And you're proposing we take that 2-hour peak up to 28.
Because that much has gone through the plant and we have historical data to back it up.
you know, I've sat here for 4 years listening to this, you know, starting with Reese Nichols. And, you know, I have a lot of concerns. A lot of concerns with the discussions that went on in this body presented by the SGRA. And, you know, I was at the water board directors and I spoke to the staff up there who was there from the state and listening to them and then listening to Carrillo and what they were talking about just like the clarifiers. Let's leave the aeration basins long, but let's take the clarifiers where they come in and say, oh, we need, you know, a new coat of paint, epoxy paint for
That's
40 years.
That's maintenance.
What's that?
That's maintenance.
That's right. But then we start, I mean, again, I've sat through 4 years of discussions.
But
And
if the clarifiers won't pass the 2-hour peak, then
I think we need, again, I'm just going by what, you know, I was at the same discussion with the state representatives in San Antonio. And, you know, basically said they would never require you to meet requirements for something like Harvey. So maybe we need to sit there and, you know, I understand the engineering stamp. You know, I've seen so many engineers stamp on documents that are, you know, questionable. So I want to hear it from, you know, a more neutral party that can tell us what the state requires. I mean, versus.
so every engineer may have a different opinion.
Well, you're right. That's exactly right. There may be a wide range of opinions of this and you know, and I'd like to hear those opinions.
So how many engineers?
I understand, which is,
I was headed down. I was trying.
yeah, I'm an engineer. I know how licenses work. And, yeah, I was electrical, not civil, mechanical, but, I have concerns about the discussions we've had in the past and the way it went. You know what I mean? And, the way it was presented. And I think we have some work to do and understanding,
Well,
to get an understanding of a way to proceed forward. And some of the discussion I just heard now is we're going back 4 years ago.
We probably need to have, this is kind of going beyond just kind of general discussion under the.
Yeah,
SRA before
Yeah, this was
we have
intended to
it.
be on all
A
the
separate
meetings.
Yeah,
But
let's go.
it's on all the agendas for next week, so we can certainly
I'd
get
just
into
like
more
to make
detail.
one comment there. We need to resolve whether we're gonna keep what we got or reevaluate the other three. We either gonna fix what we got or we're gonna replace it. That disease, we don't need us another $1 million worth of engineering. We've been through that. We need to decide whether we're gonna keep what we have, or we're got 3 other alternatives to build new ones of different varieties. This gets right back where you were 3 years ago.
to be able,
So why can't we just finally resolve, are we gonna keep what we got? Or are we gonna build a new? It's real simple. Why do we need all this?
Because there are other directors that said they want to know the whole picture. They want to know whether it's repairable or whether it's worth replacing because of net present value cost in the future. And so what the purpose of these four was to try and get answers to answer all the questions by all the different directors. So if the change of attitude by the directors, if the attitude of the directors changes on what the next step is, we can pivot.
Well,
But right now, we haven't been told that that's.
I would recommend that we don't do anything until this next election.
Can we bring this to the MUDs, please, as opposed to,
It's on the agenda.
there's been a lot of good discussion here. A lot of good information's been presented, and I think it needs to go with the MUDs and get a further evaluation of whether, what will be the path forward, the consensus of path forward.
You all have the document. We'll have other copies in the board packets.
Yeah, I'm gonna comment. Everybody heard about the prediction market where you can bank a bet on anything.
Oh, like Kelsey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kelsey.
okay, I do that.
Anyway, you can, and I want
You can
somebody.
bet on everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a bet tonight and I'll put it in escrow and I'll write a check for $10,000. And within 10
What's your
years,
Kelsey account? Because I'm gonna follow you.
no. I doubt if I can get anybody to take the other side of this bet. I'll
There's
write a check for
There's
10
crazy people in Vegas.
I'll write a check for $10,000. We'll put it in escrow. I'll be
Yes.
dead. I got 3 great grandchildren, brand new. And anybody else want to write a check against this? I'll predict that in 10 years, there won't be 4 million gallons a day going through wastewater treatment plant 1.
Thank you for
I
your
wanna take
prediction.
that
Let's go. Let's
I'm
go.
available.
Our attorney's report, please.
So is there gonna be an action in the, are you expecting the MUDs to up and down or move this expenditure?
We're looking for concurrence.
Good on the
This is
Super
the
Bowl.
path.
I hope we're here to argue it out.
No, we're both.
So that'll be a-
I know.
So the
Yes or
point
no?
is, we'll put it in escrow.
Okay.
And if it needs to be
I know,
deferred,
and
it
then
gets
your legacy will
Okay.
get it. It'll.
If
No,
goes-
some
goes-
point,
goes
some of
to
that
the
will fall
I
down.
got 3 new
Yeah.
grandchildren.
Well, there you
God
go.
bless.
And that up or down comes with spending money.
Trust, yeah.
One of each? Got 3?
Okay, okay.
Talk about it in the months and then bring it back to the trustees.
There was already.
But no, I
So why are we bringing it back to
what
the
we need
trustees?
to decide,
Financial.
what's the end point? Because otherwise it's all
So-
scope creep.
Just
It's just meetings.
kind of close this out again. We need to have a separate agenda item to really talk about this.
Hang on, Diane, hold up, please.
So we need to kind of wrap this up because we don't have a separate agenda item to go into depth on this. Next month, we'll put this on the trustee agenda for consideration and or action. It's a financial matter, so ultimately it's decided, if we have to adjust the budget for, operating budget expenditures by the trustees. Ultimately, it would be a bond finance deal. We talked about that, future supplemental agreement. But we'll have it on the MUD agenda next month to be able to give direction to your trustees.
This month.
Correct. It'll be on the MUD agenda this month.
Next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
Right. So.
That'll just be a direction to the trustees. It won't be a
Correct.
approval.
Correct. Correct.
Thank y'all.
I don't have anything separate of the attorney's report. Elections are ongoing. We'll be monitoring those with the county, but that's really it from a legal perspective this month. Happy to answer questions if you have them. All right.
Thank you, sir. Agenda item 11, review and discuss the process and considerations related to MUD consolidation. General Manager Peterson, please. This was Brad and Walt both requested this be discussed.
Yes, so I think there was just a question, there was a couple months, 16 and potentially 36 that are looking at the potential of consolidating themselves. I know that one is a district that had been consolidated prior with MUDs 2 and 40 years ago, so it's been done before. And 1 and 6 had expressed interest in possibly doing that. And the 36 is at least in the discussion at this point. So it was asked to be put on the agenda
to discuss further. But that's what's going on.
Anybody have anything to contribute with that discussion?
I'll make some comments. We're built out, I guess you would say, that we, and the way that we're structured now with 51 directors and, 10 trustees and 11 meetings a month. Is that the most efficient way for our residents out there? I mean, we conducted our meeting on Tuesday, Mud 1. We had an agenda sheet, so forth. We probably through in 30 minutes. I went to the Mud 6 meeting. Their agenda was exactly the exact same thing as ours, except for the fact that ours, we do the Pledge of Allegiance, but they didn't do that. I mean, so, and you're talking about a meeting that has 5 mud directors, you've got 6 people from Woodlands Water Association, you got 4 or 5 people from SJRA, you got 2 outside legal counsel over there. It's just a lot of money and a lot of time I don't think that we really need to do that. I think we ought to start looking at what muds converge together. I think 1 and 6, we're looking at it now. We're going through the numbers. I think the meeting Monday this morning that I've got Bob Lilac working on numbers. We're updating the numbers that we did back in 2021, I think, when we did it last time, to really see financial wise how it would work and everything. And then we're going to look at 36. And I think I mean, personally, I think, begin with the end in mind. I mean, do we even need to have, the months anymore? That we need to just turn things over to Woodlands Water and maybe have a board of trustees that are elected, kind of like the township is. But I don't think we need to have 11 meetings a month. What's our budget? 15 million or whatever it is, and we meet 11 times. The township has a $185 million budget and they meet twice a month. So I think it's something we need to think about. We need to have some of the other months maybe start looking at, is there a way that you can combine and we can start reducing costs. I mean, there's a lot of benefits of it. Just from the Woodlands Water Association, the amount of time that they spend, the amount of money that they're invested in doing this, that would eliminate that, eliminate the tax district audits, outside legal counsel. No offense, Brian, we like you, but.
Got a few meetings. Got more to keep me busy. Don't worry about that.
More productive things.
Is there some sort of state regulation that determines the infrastructure for MUDs, or is that just something that we just all created locally? I don't know. I'm asking.
So it's all state law. It's under the water code, the number of directors and the process.
So we just can't get a quorum together and saying, we're just all going to unite. There's a specific process we would go through to do this?
Yeah, so there's provisions under chapter 54 of the water code that govern consolidation of MUDs. And so that's the framework we use to be able to consolidate MUD 2 and 40 into MUD 1, a number of years ago. So that's the process we would go through. I mean, you get into situations about, political representation. Some see it as good things, some see it as not, to reduce the number of, elected officials. Different tax rates, how do you equalize those? Some of that can maybe be buffered with reserves to try to come up with some equalization if you're close. But if you've got a large disparity, that can create a challenge. But I think what MUD 6 and MUD 1 are looking at, and potentially 36, is on a scale that you don't have some of those complicating factors. I mean, you have some, but not as many. You don't have debt outstanding or significant debt. So that's what they will be looking at. But if we apply it across a larger number, to Walt's point, then that certainly adds to the complexity. And it would probably be districts that are of similar size in terms of tax rate, reserves, debt, et cetera, that were interested in that would be the ones that would look at. I know that's something Eric has been keeping an eye on each year as we do tax rates to see which ones are convergent and might be candidates.
Because he makes a good point is that, the Woodlands Township basically operates on volunteer and they control so much and there's not that many people and they get a lot of stuff done. And I'm thinking what I'm hearing him say is that we're kind of top heavy here and maybe there's a way for us to streamline and I'm all for cost efficiency because that's music to the taxpayers' ears.
I might expand. Brian, it's my understanding that each of these MUDs is created by state law so we can levy taxes.
Right.
So they have to be dissolved by the voters in state law. So it sounds easy.
Yeah.
But it's not near as easy as it. We'd all like to say, hey, let's all dissolve and.
Right. So it would go to a, hypothetically, that would go to a referendum for the people to vote.
But you can't.
No,
I mean, I don't know.
So
I'm
if you're talking
asking,
about-
but
if you're
his
talking about a couple-
concept piques my interest.
Yeah, if you're talking about, a couple districts voluntarily moving or 2 or 3 districts moving to consolidate, maybe you have 2 at the low end of a tax rate, you got somewhere in the middle. Those are subject to separate elections by the voters of both districts. Assuming it's 2. If it's 3, then, you just multiply that. The voters of each potentially consolidating district at the election on a uniform election date, both or all 3 have to vote to approve the consolidation. If either one doesn't, consolidation fails. That's what happened a few years back with MUD 1 and MUD 6. Now, that was complicated by the fact it was on the same ballot as the township incorporation, and there's some speculation that people who voted no for incorporation may have just voted no on whatever was there, including on a MUD consolidation. So, that's speculation, but that was at the same time. So you do have to have, under the law, you do have to have each district's voters approve the consolidation. And so that's why you try to take it in pieces to be able to, whittle down the number of districts. Now, I think it's great to move toward that, reduced number of districts, but just to make you feel a little bit better in terms of the top heavy concern, keep in mind, most districts are between 500 to 1,000 acres. Y'all got 28,000 plus acres, and you only have 10 districts. So relatively speaking, in regular MUD world, you're outstandingly efficient. But we always want to get better. We always want to be more efficient. And so there's an opportunity to do that.
Just for perspective on the process, from my study of what occurred, it was about 2018 roughly when 2 and 40 combined, is that was nearly a 2-year process.
Wow.
Just to get all that done to get to the election. So there was a lot of, now that was the first time it had been done. So there was probably some learning that occurred, I guess, at that time. Maybe it's more efficient now, but it's still not, it's not a, let's just decide to go. It's a long process with a lot of public education and then obviously the election and et cetera. So.
Yeah.
So follow up for Mary Waller or somebody else. So you mentioned consolidating and transferring to WWA. My impression was WWA is a different legal entity, not a MUD. MUDs have certain capabilities. WWA has certain capabilities. They're not the same. Are you proposing that we do away with all the MUDs and we only have WWA?
No, what I'm doing, proposing eventually. I mean, it's going to take a lot of thought process and a lot of legal advice also on how to do this. But I'm talking about you turn over them, but you have a board of trustees that are elected that oversee them. Kind of like the township board is. So it's that the MUDs now are acting like a intermediate, to dealing with WWA, where the board of trustees would be elected by the residents. And then they would basically report to the board of trustees.
I'm confused. Do we still have a single MUD or we have no MUDs and we only have a WWA?
You still have MUDs. They're just the operating entity for our.
Well, if you still have a MUD, then you'd have 5 directors for that MUD.
Right.
And they could function as the trustees for the WWA.
Yeah, there's 2 potential, there's any number of ways to slice this up, but there could be 2 layers of attack for additional efficiency possibly. One could be what we've been talking about of actually just consolidating a few muds here. If there was agreement among all the muds, you could also amend the Woodlands Water. So Woodlands Water Agency is not technically a separate political subdivision. It's an administrative agency that's allowed under the governmental code to be able to have the agency handle tasks that the mud would otherwise handle. You could, if all the muds agreed, you could open up that Woodlands Water agreement that is entered into by all the muds and basically delegate more authority from the muds to Woodlands Water to basically make it to where the muds maybe only needed to meet, a handful of times a year, cut down on the number of mud meetings, have delegated more responsibility to the trustees to handle the day-to-day stuff and, more approvals that are handled by the river authority under those agreements. You could potentially delegate more of that. If you wanted to try to go with that angle of more efficiency, less mud meetings.
Okay, I guess what I'm concerned about is, are we getting separate trustees for the WWA that are not tied to the mud? So you would still have a mud.
Yes.
And you would expect those mud directors to be the trustees for the WWA.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have an election for WWA trustees
Correct.
separate from mud
Exactly.
directors.
Exactly.
Okay.
But in reality, the 10 muds could merge into one. We even thought Metro. And
Okay, too.
but, you could merge all 9 or 10
Yeah.
and do the same thing. But it's just
Legally.
politically more complicated.
Correct. Politically more complicated because you have 10 chances for it not to be approved because any one of the 10 could not approve it. You'd have to look at the equalization on the tax rate, which would, are there winners, losers? There probably would be some of that. And that's going to be a tough sell for those who would have their effective rate, go up potentially. And then you're always going to have the one side versus the other and how they view the reduction in the number of, elected representatives from 50 to 5 or 10. Some folks view that as an efficiency gain. Some folks view that as another step away from your elected representatives. So I have no opinion on that, but just that's always going to be out there.
Yeah, the first and easiest thing to look at is the tax rates. So 1 and 6 are within 0.045 from each other. They're the closest ones. There are a couple others not close to them, but close to each other in different areas at different levels. But that was the first thing that I think, triggered it as far as, well, we're pretty close in terms of 1 and 6, that it might work from a tax rate standpoint. But there's a whole list of other things that would have to be identified for it to go.
Anything else?
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for your insight. That brings us to the agenda item number 12, General Manager's Report. General Manager Peterson, please.
Good evening. I will be very brief. We talked about a few things already. Just wanted to point you out to page 54 in the packet. Related to some comments we received from the directors and trustees last month. That is a revised form of the supplemental that pulls out the supplemental lines from tier 1 and moves them to another category. So no action. As I mentioned earlier, we'll likely get into more of the financials and performas and bond and all that. Now that we have the schedule, we'll probably dig into that a little bit more in May. So, and as you saw on the timeline here tonight, the supplemental will be range. So just wanted to provide it to you, and we'll talk more about it next week, but no action this next couple of months. Just an update.
Would you also please update the Bear Branch, Panther Branch?
Yes.
The Bear Branch Dam specifically, not if you could update the Bear Branch, Panther Branch Research Forest Project, that'd be great. But I remember specifically was asked at the last meeting to update the dam.
Meeting was up, yes. And there's 6 stakeholders in that project, so not everyone here is involved in that project, but we've reached out to the Corps of Engineers who was contemplating doing a feasibility to identify whether or not they felt like the project was qualify for the cap funding, which would effectively allow us to get the entire gap of funds that we're short by at this point, which is around 10 million or so, above the 11.3 that we have in the bank, from Lewiston loans and grants and MUD funds. And they have reported back that they don't have funds to do the feasibility in this budget year, and that they would be looking to put that in their budget for next year. And so on the MUD agendas this month for the stakeholder MUDs, we'll be talking a little bit more in detail on that, and then also what that may mean as far as next steps, and looking for additional funds elsewhere, or waiting to go back, to wait for the core. So more to come on that.
When is their fiscal year, the federal? When would that even be a potential?
Be in 2027.
You know when?
I don't.
September 30th, I think.
Pardon me?
September 30th.
September? Holy Christmas in 2027. Yikes.
Well, yeah, it'll be 2026, fiscal year 2026-7. That, if that's the.
Yeah, it's October 1st.
Okay, that's it. Any questions for General Manager Peterson? Thank you, sir. That brings us to agenda item 13, the ad hoc committee reports. The Personnel Committee did not meet. Audit and Finance, Ron Wilson.
Did not meet.
Public Education Committee, Trustee Neil Gaynor.
Did meet. Okay, reporting on the following for our meeting this afternoon. I'll read that here. Updates to project timetables and scope will be shared with the community working group via project update series, with the intent of disseminating that information to Woodman's residents. However, any information will be shared with the CWG only after any MUD reviews and decisions are fully complete. So we've got some hints at how that timetable is going to flow for just one project. Similarly, updates to the water renewal website will be made after review and decisions are made by the MUDs. For example, as an example only, the gravity conveyance optimization project, which became, of course, the Lift Station 5 force main replacement project, with other wastewater assets in that area being maintained, repaired, or replaced as required. The results of the 2026 survey are now in and will be provided to all directors next week's MUD meetings. The results indicate the value of ensuring transparency and providing timely, accurate information to residents. So I see the communications to the public as an essential part of providing the best level of service. The public will know what it is they're going to be getting for both their water bills, the money they pay in the water and sewer, as well as the tax. So that's my report.
Thank you, sir. Very good.
One thing, I don't know if we're going to do it, but I'd like to see on our webpage where you could put your address and it tells you what MUD you're in.
It is almost live.
Almost live, good.
We tested it.
That's harder to determine that
It's working, yep.
Yeah.
So it's really, really close.
Yeah.
Really close.
Step by step.
Within days.
The needed feature.
Yeah. Because
Amazing.
MUD
Number of
viewer
folks
is
that have no idea.
deficient.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tested it out, it works. We're just tinkering with what it looks like to the user when it kind of pops up the answer, because the box wasn't aligned, just weird stuff like that. We're fine tuning. So, yep, we've got it. Got it ready.
MUD viewer just gives me gray hair every time I have to use it.
We're there.
We need to go to special. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 16. The discussion of matters to be placed on future agendas. This is going to be put on future agenda. Yeah. I don't know what we call this, the wastewater treatment facility #1 evaluation.
WRF #1.
Yeah. Was there also some discussion earlier about the date or of an all MUDs meeting? Anybody recall anything like that that was
There may be reason, maybe late May, early June, to have one to talk more about water renewal, and as we get closer to, finalizing supplemental authorizations and all that, just to get everybody in the room if needed. So it's
Probably be at the May,
be late May, early
MED
June,
meetings, right? To get a consensus of what would be a good date.
to schedule it potentially. Yeah.
Okay. So there's no need for us to get into that. Very good. Anything else? Anybody? Meeting's adjourned.